Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Strong Families podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Jo. And on this podcast, we have real talk with real parents about the highs, the lows, and the in-betweens of family life in the hopes that we can all learn a little something.
That's right. So grab a coffee, strap in, and we hope by the end of this podcast, all of our families have grown a little stronger.
I know I need it.
Uh-huh.
Hi, Amy.
Oh, hi, Jo. How you doing?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, look, living the dream. Living the dream. Doing really, really well. Still pregnant. Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Got a few more weeks of that.
Just a few.
No, many more. Well,
a few more months of that, actually.
Yeah, but they're flying. Anywho.
Moving on.
But yeah, how's your week been? Tell me all about it.
Good. It's book week. So all the parents out there who are currently up to their armpits in hot glue guns and paper mache, I feel for you. Because we decided this year we were actually putting some effort into book week, which in the past we've been more, just used the Spider-Man costume we already had in the house.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah,
Very
but
good.
this year I decided, no, we're going to pick actual, characters from the kids' favourite books and put some effort into the costume. But my son is going as Dogman. So if you have a child in early primary school, you probably know who Dogman is.
I do not.
But it's a comic book, and Dogman obviously has a big dog head.
Great.
And so we've been paper macheing a dog head.
Fascinating.
So yeah, bringing me back to my primary school days with the paper mache. I had to kind of Google how to
do
paper
it
mache again, make sure I had the recipe right. And unfortunately, what has happened this week is we many layers of paper mache, finished it all, decided to paint the dog head. I did that the other day, and then I left the dog head outside to dry overnight. And we have a family of possums that live in our yard. Yes, and I am aware that the possums live there. What I wasn't aware of was that possums really like eating paper mache. It's a kind of a delicacy in the rodent world.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, wow.
And so, we came out on the other morning, and this dog head has just been completely eaten and destroyed by the possums. But we have another couple of days before the actual book week parade, so we will rebuild.
Yeah, you can resurrect it.
Yeah,
great.
Dogman will be resurrected, but it's just one of those stories of like, this is my life.
This is
now
your life.
that while the kids are at school and baby napping, I am
doing paper mache
to be a good mum and restore the dog head.
Oh
so,
gosh.
yeah.
Oh gosh, you'll feel so accomplished on Thursday when it's done. Be like, okay, we did
definitely
it. It's done.
Taking the photos to show our work.
Yeah,
the
amazing.
finished product. We're going to be even more proud because of the story behind it. So anyway, that's my week.
Well,
that's one of the things I've been doing.
Wowzers.
But anyway, today's podcast,
it's a
we've
cracker.
got one of my great friends, Adam Kitcatt, in, and I'm going to be talking to him.
Yep.
And he just has a lot to share, I guess, from the dad's perspective.
Yeah, he's our first dad on the show.
That's right.
Yeah.
First male perspective. And so we talk a bit about, just what it means to be a dad and things he's teaching his boys. But also we're talking about on the other side of adoption and his story around that. So
yeah,
it's going to be great.
It's a good one. So strap in and we hope you enjoy.
Hi, Adam. Welcome to the Strong Families podcast.
Hello.
It is so great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Jo.
And looking forward to our conversation. And I know that, you've got a lot of wisdom to share. Maybe a lot of anecdotes to share too, hopefully. But yeah, we're keen to have a chat. But why don't you start us off? We like to always ask our podcast guests, just what is your family snapshot? Give us a picture of your family with words.
I've got a wife, Ellie, who's amazing. And I have two boys, who 8 and 2. I always have to guess because they always tell me what age they're turning. But they're actually 8 and 2. Yeah. He's the eldest is Samuel in grade 3, and he's doing well in life. And then we've got a younger one, 2, Benji, who is just a terror, a nice terror, but a terror.
The sweetest boy.
Yeah, to you, to me, I've got to deal with everything else. No, he's good. It keeps me on my toes at least.
Yeah,
but yeah, they're lots of fun, and we. I stay at home, and Ellie goes and works 3 days a week as a doctor, and that doctoring is really useful at home as well, to administer all the drugs.
It's also useful when you're friends with that doctor, because
yes,
I have
You've reaped
used
the benefits.
Ellie's expertise many times.
Nice.
On video,
I would be richer if I
calling
could
her.
charge my friends.
We would owe you a lot of money, because she has consulted with me on many injuries in the James household. So I appreciate
that's
that.
mighty
And
handy.
you're right, she's awesome. We love Ellie. She's great,
is.
and your whole family is great. So obviously our listeners can probably hear that you have a bit of an accent. Don't sound quite as ochre as us.
Good night, mate. How's it going?
You are doing pretty well with the Aussie accent, but tell us, where are you from, and how long have you been in Australia?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the UK, and I moved to Australia in 2011 for a working holiday. We were both working really hard over in the UK, much longer working hours over there. And we thought we'd come over here, have a change of pace, have a holiday. We went diving a lot. And then after a year, we thought we'd actually really like to stay here. So we decided to stay, and Australia were kind enough to let us. And we ended up staying here ever since. So we've been here now 12 years and loving it. We became permanent residents shortly afterwards. I don't remember exactly when, and then citizens, I think 2016. So I'm now fully pledged Aussie.
You're an Aussie. So if I say Aussie, 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 what's the response?
Oi, oi, oi.
There you go.
Yeah, all right.
I was thinking oi.
Is that
Is
on the citizenship test?
It should be.
No, it's not on the citizenship test.
Do you need to have like a tablespoon of Vegemite to be allowed in?
No. I would fail because I've not really been a fan. So Vegemite on toast is not my thing, but barbecues and sunshine and having a good time is.
Yeah.
So yeah, Australia's got a lot to recommend it. So yeah, we love it here.
Well, it's nice to have you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
So
One Aussie to another Aussie. Yeah. So
it's nice to have you.
You're
We'll let you in.
accepted.
That's it. So you have 2 boys, 8 and 2, as you said. What stage has been the best in those 8 years?
I think it just keeps on getting better. So I think it's good at every stage for us, at least so far. But I think just as they interact more and you see personality and they start asking questions and they can laugh more and play more and things like that, I just love it more and more. There's challenges as they get older, I think, but it doesn't in any way outweigh the kind of more joy that you have in bringing up kids. So far, I don't have teenagers. I hear that. I hear that's a sticky patch. But
that's what they say. You got boys though, right? They say it's easier with boys, teenagers. Surely, come on.
I asked.
I think that's generalized.
I asked parents with teenagers, and it's 50-50 boys and girls. Sometimes the girls are like no problem and responsible, and then sometimes the boys have no emotional.
All right, we'll check back in a few years.
I'd like to talk to a parent of teenagers on our podcast sometime, because I think that the stereotypes and the expectations and stuff are pretty. I like, it's always so negative about teenagers, but I'm sure that there's some awesome parts. Because, like you said, Adam, like each age has been just had its joys and struggles, but it keeps getting better and better. So I can only imagine that there's also some good things, as well as some very real challenges about the teenage
for
years.
for sure.
So
with having like Benji being 2, and you're saying that like Samuel being 8, like it keeps getting better. Are you like excited for Benji to catch up, or are you savoring it all with?
Definitely. When Benji was born, I was looking forward to him being older. With the first one, I think the whole experience is novel, and then you don't know that it's going to get better, so you enjoy every stage very much more intimately, and there's only one. But I think with having the second, I've actually really enjoyed it anyways, but I think there is that sense that I actually always know things are going to get better, but I don't think that tarnishes what is happening now. But it's definitely there in the back of your mind.
Interesting.
I think it also helps you get through the challenging moments, you know, the toddler challenging moments, because you kind of have that perspective of like,
this too shall pass.
This too shall pass. It's a very, it's a very common kind of cliche phrase, but it's very true. It really does help to have that perspective that you'll get through it, I think. So this season of the podcast is called
Yep.
On the Other Side. That's
Yes.
the theme that we're talking about, because people have been through stuff in life, and we like to talk to them when they're on the other side of that challenge or that situation. And so with you, Adam, we were wanting to talk about on the other side of adoption, because you were adopted. And would you mind sharing with us just your story of, have you always known you were adopted? What happened?
So I was adopted pretty much straight out of the hospital. I think obviously paperwork-wise it might have taken a little bit longer, but I went home to my adoptive parents. And to explain the situation, I've got a biological mother, as everyone does. But,
you generally need that to be born.
but most people don't have to specify biological mother. But
Yes.
so I've got a biological mother and father, and I got adopted by my biological mother's brother and his wife.
Right.
So by my uncle and auntie, essentially. And then I've never seen or met or spoken to my biological father. And then, so I went straight to hospital then. I'm half Asian, for people who are listening. And my father was the Asian part of that. And my mother's white. So I went straight into kind of a white household that already had 2 kids. Obviously, I didn't know anything different because I was born into that, essentially. And I grew up I suppose, exactly thinking I was white, which was kind of interesting because everyone I saw around me was white. And at that time in Britain, there wasn't that many different races or things like that, so I kind of was the only brown in the village, as it were. And I grew up just as anyone else would, thinking this was my family. And I was told that I was adopted, but I probably didn't quite know what that meant until I was a bit older. But my parents were always kind of open and honest, and they were very candid about being honest regarding that. And my brothers didn't really see me as different either. So I remember first day of when I went to school with my brothers, all their school friends told them and was just like, "Your brother's brown." Okay.
Why do you have an Asian brother?
Why do you have a brown brother? And my eldest brother, David, who's 2 years older than me, came racing home from school apparently that day and went into my bedroom, looked at me, went straight to Mum and was just like, "Hey, Mum, do you know that Adam is brown?"
Have you noticed?
And so
It's just dawned on me.
I mean, we were open about it, but at the same time, we didn't really understand the gravity of what it meant, and it didn't really affect in a negative way, certainly at that time. When I was growing up, I definitely had a lot of kind of like racism and different things that happened. Again, not to a super negative experience from my point of view, but I would, get called chink down the street or whatever. But it was always a bit of a shock to me that people would do that, because culturally and like family-wise, I'm as white as they come. There's phrases for it over in Britain like coconut, brown on the outside, white in the inside, or chalk ice or things like that. So it's definitely there, and I just always kind of see myself as white, so I'm actually constantly shocked. I used to have people who were from China. My dad's, I think, Chinese Malay. I only say think just because there's so many Chinese people that kind of talk to me, expecting me to be Chinese, but I definitely know my dad was Malaysian. And I would get a lot of people, kind of just random Chinese people talking to me, or I'd get free stuff at Chinese takeaways.
Oh, yes.
So
they do that, do they? They give free stuff.
I used to brag about it, and I bragged about it to one friend, and he was just like, no way. So I was just like, let's go get Chinese. So we went to go and get Chinese, and the woman there was just straight away started to talk to me, and she's just like, "Oh, what generation are you?" And I was just like, "Oh, I'm, playing a bit of a game." I was just like, "Oh, I'm third generation." Just for people who don't know, they're talking about generation of migrants. So I couldn't say I was first because I would definitely have to speak Chinese, and I don't know any. So I was just like,
make it believable.
So I was like third, and she's like, "Oh, do you speak Mandarin?" And I was just like, "Oh, no.
No.
And I felt really kind of awkward at this point because I was just like, oh, I feel kind of bad that, you know, I'd be leading her down
Yeah.
the garden path. So I was going to go and say, no, sorry, I'm not. But she interrupted me and she said, oh, nope, I don't blame you. I blame your mum. And I was just like, oh,
Okay, I'll
Cool.
just take that.
I just said, so do I.
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, and I got some free prawn crackers that visit
Perfect.
too.
Right.
But
So you
I-
would prove it. You proved yourself correct.
Well-
Now you get free stuff.
the worst part of it was is not the prawn crackers, but she beckoned her daughter out into
Oh.
the room, and it's kind of awkward. So I've got my white friend right behind me, kind of watching the whole thing, expecting it to kind of fall flat as a pancake, but instead she brings out her daughter, and she starts talking to me and saying how good her daughter was.
Oh. How old were you at this point?
Oh, I was 18. at
Oh,
this point,
okay.
I
So
think.
yeah,
Gosh,
definitely
yeah.
like
So,
I would
yeah,
like you
marriageable
to
age,
meet
yes,
another,
yes.
you know,
Oh my God.
marry someone of
Yeah,
the same
so,
race. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
my
I kind of got
days.
offered a daughter at the same time, but
Oh.
Wow.
I did not go.
So when
It's
you
more
said
than you
free
bargained for.
stuff, yeah,
Yes.
it was not exactly what you were planning.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
no,
but
no.
the perfect thing for my friend to see.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
perfect.
good example of
Oh
like
my
the very
days.
real experience that
Yes.
you have.
Yes.
Do you feel like when you meet people and they say, "Oh, where are you from?" Do you feel like you kind of have to explain your adoption to try and explain who you are?
Yeah, so I don't, because I honestly just read that and I'm just like, I'm from UK originally,
Yeah.
or things like that. But then they might go and have a second question of where are you from?
Oh,
Yeah,
Which is
but
exactly
really
the same as the first.
Yeah.
But
I'm
just a
still
little
different
I'm still
inflection.
from
Yeah,
the UK.
that's right. And then I realize I'm kind of an outsider to
Yeah.
that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And then I'll be like, still from the UK,
Yeah.
and I make them work for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh no, but what about your parents? And I'm like, well, that's easy, from the UK.
Yeah.
So I, you know, because I'm adopted, I play both sides.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, oh, and I'll help them out. I'll go and say, what's my ethnic origin? And they'll be like, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm half Malaysian, half white.
Yeah.
But I've only ever known the UK, so I don't know anything about Malaysia.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
And it doesn't really bother you too much that people are kind of trying to get that answer out of you, or you just
I find it fun.
okay.
Yeah.
So you can be offended or find things fun, and
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
choose to find it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's for me it's good, and it's also educational as well, because I think nowadays more and more people are so global that in Australia it probably, you know, people are generally immigrants of some generation, so it's probably more normal here, whereas in the UK there's still staunch areas where people, you know, think Britain is for British people only, and
Yeah.
things like
Okay.
that. So at least, you know, you can kind of tell them that I'm fully British, but
Yeah.
got some
Yeah,
different roots.
Mm.
That's so interesting. With so your auntie and uncle adopted you.
Yes.
So they're your parents.
Yes.
Does that mean that you grew up knowing your biological mother?
No. So that would make sense. So I was born in December. My biological mother actually died the
Whoa.
following July.
Wow.
So
Whoa. Okay.
it was nothing to do with
Yep.
my adoption. That was already taking place. But just happenstance,
Yeah,
she
wow.
died 7 months later or 8 months later
Yeah, wow.
in Malaysia.
Mhm.
So by this point, my mother had already had already had another child before me,
Oh,
who was
wow.
2 years older. But it wasn't with my adoptive dad.
Okay, sure.
So suddenly I was the closest blood relative to
Mhm.
my brother. So my parents actually did a double adoption essentially,
Oh, wow.
and adopted the other brother.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was airfares were super expensive and different things like that. So they actually had to go and like sell the house that they'd kind of made and
Wow.
different
Whoa.
things
I
like
didn't
that.
know
And
that.
I think they spent like £40,000 back in the day to go and
Whoa.
actually make that adoption happen
Wow.
for my brother,
Yeah.
who again is my half brother biologically, but you know for me and for my other brothers, just my brother.
Yeah. Wow.
To go and do that. So he was adopted. I think it was a couple of years afterwards, because it took that long through the processes and courts and different things like that, and to go and make that happen. So
Yeah.
I've seen kind of my adoption, but also my brother's adoption, and things have been quite straightforward for me as an as adopted person, but probably not so for my brother. So I've seen kind of both sides as we've been growing up, whereas he definitely feels like the black sheep of the family.
Okay.
Even
because he was older maybe when he was adopted, or he just always struggled more with his identity of who
I think
who
it would
he
be.
was.
I think it would be difficult to go and ever say for sure, which it was. Part of it, I think, is the way you think about yourself. But I think part of it as well is that maybe he did have stuff from being only there for maybe 2 years or 3 years there and having stuff built up in his life or whatever. I found it harder. But my parents were so fair and very open and honest in saying that they loved us all kind of equally and things like that. And they definitely demonstrate
people
that.
feel other, like, you know, that there was any kind of favoritism.
Yeah,
or,
that's
you know,
right. And to be honest, I would never think in that way anyways, but I think they probably had to do that for him in particular. But I think me and my other brothers didn't think that way. In some ways, my two eldest brothers probably have no issue with me being adopted into the family, but probably have issue with him because he did mess around when he was a kid and different things like that. And we were probably
kind of rocked the boat a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so it's a bit weird kind of growing up and seeing both sides of the adoption kind of line of where things go good or bad. But now, like, since my brother became a dad, things changed for him significantly. He understood like what it means to be a parent and things that you just take blissfully ignorant before, and parenting's so easy and things like that. I think he realized actually it was a big deal to take on another child into a household.
Do you feel like when you became a parent, it made you more kind of reflective about your adoptive parents or even about your biological parents? Did you kind of bring up any emotion of kind of thinking back to what their experiences were?
Yes and no. I think you understand all the kind of 24/7 parenting that kind of goes on that you don't appreciate when you're 8 or 18 or different things like that. The kind of intensity and intimacy that you have with your parents and how much they've loved you and wanted the best for you and different things like that, and you've been like, Mom, I hate you, or things like that.
Not appreciating
not appreciating any of that. So
and
I was definitely said thank you to my mom in a different way at that point because I was appreciative of that. But I think because of my upbringing, I probably reflected about it more than other people in terms of, questions like, why didn't my biological mother want me? Obviously, it turned out well in some ways because she was to die 7 months later. But questions like that, why would this happen and things like that. And to be honest, it didn't affect me too much, but it's just thoughts that you have in your head. When I became 21 months and like 6 months, at that point I'd outlived my mother because she died at that age. She died of like a aneurysm. So at that point I thought, well, I've had a longer spell than she's had, so I was kind of grateful for that too. But I think I probably thought a lot about these questions and come to terms with a lot of different things. Though I'd spoken about my parents being honest, and they had been, but I was going to speak to a few people about adoption. A few people, it was about 100 people or so.
Just a couple. Just a few.
Yeah.
As you do, just a little bit of public speaking. Okay.
Yeah, a bit of public speaking, just to inspire people about adoption and things like that. But I found out my mum because as a child, you remember things differently, and you don't remember things 100%, and you skew things. So I just thought I'd go and ask my mom, is this part of the story true? Is this, and I think all of it was correct that I'd remembered in my head. And I thought I'd just go and ask, because there's some questions that kind of left unspoken, or maybe I have chatted to them before, but I'd maybe forgotten. And I just said, hey, Mum, I'm going to be okay. But like, why didn't my biological mother want to keep me? And things got very quiet.
Oh yeah,
and
big question.
Well, my mum's not usually kind of.
Is she usually pretty? open and matter of
Yeah,
fact.
that's right. So I
Yeah.
could tell with the silence that something was going on. So I was just like, brace myself. And I was just like, Mum, everything's all right. Like, what's the deal? And she's just like, I've never told you. And I was just like, okay. What I'm going to find out. And she said, I never told you, but when I was in Malaysia and, when my mum conceived in Malaysia, she actually tried to get me aborted in Malaysia.
Wow.
Now, it's illegal to abort in Malaysia, so at this point you've got to go and see someone and kind of drink some kind of poison stuff, enough to
right.
kill the baby, but not the
kill
mum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she already tried that
Yeah.
Oh.
with me, and then was going to the UK to go and get aborted there.
Yeah, wow.
Essentially, with kind of better medical services.
Sure.
And it was at that point that my parents intervened and said, "Hey, listen, if you were to kind of carry this baby to term, we would go and adopt him."
Yeah.
So my mum kind of shared that like a week before I was
Wow.
going to go and share about adoption.
Oh,
And I was just
gosh.
like,
Did that rattle you? That would definitely rattle me. For good and bad, you'd be like, wow, like, that's a horrible thought, but also, isn't it amazing that, I was given the chance at life?
yeah, I think my brother had always asked, my kind of biological half brother, he'd always asked, like, why did Nolene, my mum, wanted to keep me but not you in terms of adoption, particularly because she was still with a partner who was my dad. Why that happened? So I think I got an answer at least for that, which is the kind of purpose of the question.
Made sense,
But actually, I was actually quite fine with it. I think a couple of random reasons. It's the chances of you being born or whatever is like so minimal. It should be someone else.
Yeah.
Like, but it's actually turned out to be you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In terms of the sperm, eggs,
Like, you're
all that
already
type of stuff.
miraculous.
You're
that
already
you.
miraculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So you're already miraculous. So at that point, like, what's meant to be is meant to be. And because I'm a Christian, I've always thought that God has kind of made this all happen anyways. He knew my mum was going to die 7 months later. He knew that she was going to try and get an abortion, but then go to the UK and my parents would rescue me. So I really just felt a sense of God's providence in all those things.
Amazing.
And just
Wow.
knew that it was meant to happen. And sure, it was very unlikely, but actually we're all very unlikely as things go. So I was a little bit like, how do I process my mum lying to me for this long after she told me she was going to be so honest? But actually, I maybe it's because I'm a parent now as well. Like, I don't see things in black and white, and I understand why she would keep maybe that or whatever, because I think that would damage a lot of people's psyches and things like that.
You don't know how a child's going to be able to process that
Yeah,
information.
that's right. I mean, probably adoption already is seen as a bit of a stigma. Anyways, your parents not wanting you and things like that. And I'd always been fine with that because my adoptive parents have always wanted me, from that point of view. So kind of felt that love from that direction. But then, to go and be like, hey, she had a good go, trying to get rid of me, but wasn't to be. So, maybe I'm just invincible, so.
Super resilient.
Yeah, super resilient. But I was sharing about my adoption, and I told them about my abortion as well. I'm a pretty open person, so I kind of mentioned that, and someone came up to me afterwards, and they were just like, do you think, like, your mum taking these drugs and things like this or whatever is, like, the reason why you're where you are? And I was like, this is amazing. That was amazing.
I'd be like, excuse me, what do you mean? You implying is wrong with me?
Very, very good looking, handsome,
Yeah.
funny,
Yes,
you know, so,
of
so,
Of course.
yeah, so, it's funny. People ask and say
wow.
weirdest things, so, but again, either be offended or find it funny, and I find it funny.
So wow. I can't help but notice that you're just so secure, despite all of those things that on paper would make someone feel not super secure. You seem so assured of who you are. Nothing seems to be really rattling you. Do you think that comes down to the fact that your parents were so open about everything? Like,
I think that's
part of it?
Definitely part of it.
Yeah.
I think when you've got parents who are open, you have to kind of deal with these things,
Yeah.
and you get to deal with them early. And I think
Yeah.
as well, particularly if you get told these as a child, you probably, as a parent, you're in
Yeah.
control of the narrative.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, if you get told this when you're 13, well, you've seen a lot of movies and, you know, this might be
Yeah.
true, that might be true. And you start to go and
Mhm.
double guess things and be
Yeah.
like, oh, my parents are lying about other things. And, you know, if they do
Yeah.
that. Whereas
Yeah.
I think having kind of that honesty and stuff like that probably means that there isn't any surprises for you to doubt your parents
Yeah.
later or different
Yeah.
things like that. And, you know, I think being a parent as well, you understand that things are difficult when it comes to kids, and what do you tell them, and
Yeah.
what do you choose not to tell them, you know, particularly about those things. I think there is some right answers.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think having that kind of honesty and things like that, I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
important, because
Yeah.
to go and find out that when you're 18 or whatever, I hear, obviously probably connect with, or I know about more adopted people because of we've got shared experiences.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of people deal with that very, very badly.
Yeah.
When
to
they
go and-
find out late in life.
Yeah, to go and find out later
Yeah,
in
of
life. So I think you've got to
Would shape
kind of
your
know-
identity of like,
completely.
you know, what else was a lie, or
Yeah.
what else was not told to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that is the right way. But I think that's happening more and more now. But I think 30, 40 years ago, actually,
Yeah. It was just
often didn't
all
happen.
hush hush.
Yeah.
It was all hush hush,
Yeah.
and kind of family kept secrets, and there was a lot of stigma within
Yeah.
those families about it as well. So
Yeah.
my uncle, one second. Yeah, my uncle, who thought he was a cousin
Yeah.
of mine for a lot of his life or whatever, found out that he was actually my uncle.
Whoa.
So yeah,
Right.
his eldest sister was
Yeah.
actually his mother.
I did not
I-
know that
I
part
only
of your
found-
family story.
Yeah,
Gosh.
only found that out when he was like 18 or 20 or something.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he went through some papers and actually found his birth certificate with his
Okay.
mother's name on.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even told
Yeah. Wow.
at that point.
He discovered it.
Yeah, so
Ouch.
that's thrown him off the rails, and it
Yeah.
always did fracture
Yeah.
kind of his relationship there and stuff like that. So,
Mm. Yeah.
but yeah,
Honesty's
Families
the
are
best
tricky,
policy.
aren't they?
Oh.
Yeah, like, because, you just think until you're in those situations, knowing kind of what to say and how to frame things. But yeah, I think starting from a place of honesty and
Yeah, of
love
course.
and age appropriate kind
Yeah.
of, you know,
Yeah.
kind of explaining things to
Yeah.
kids in a way that they can understand
Yeah.
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
super important. You strike me as a really intentional dad, Adam. Like, you're intentional about everything you do in life, I think.
Yeah.
But one thing I love, so I know your family quite well,
Yeah.
and whenever we spend time with you and your kids, one thing as we're saying goodbye, you always get Samuel to come and say, you know, like, thanks for having me or whatever. And then instead of just saying thank you and leaving, you always say to him, and what's a quality statement? And he has to think of something like, oh, and the meal was really nice, or and I really enjoyed playing with Penny, or, you know, think
Yeah.
of something like a quality statement. I just think it's hilarious because you just kind of just say to him quality statement, and he knows like
That's right.
what he's meant to do. And I listened to that and I was like, oh, that's really
cool.
like, that's really intentional. Like, you've thought, I want to teach him something.
Yeah.
I guess I just wanted to kind of ask you, like, why are you so intentional with your kids, and what things are you intentional about?
Why am I so intentional?
Ooh.
Well,
Good question.
I know it's a two-prong attack, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
But first is that for their character development.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, you want your children to be raised the best they can.
Yeah.
But the other part as well is that you do want children that you do like.
Yeah. you want to
Helpful
like
if
your
you
kids.
wanna be
Yeah.
around
Let's be
it.
honest. Let's be honest.
Yeah, of course.
No, I remember. This is to kind of prove my point, but it's not to be like he came up with it and I followed it. But like Jordan Peterson once said in one of his things, he said, you know, make sure your children are actually people you want to be with.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, so and I think that's true. You do want them to be like good people for, like, in terms of character development, but also so that you can have the best household and community that you can possibly have at your home or whatever. So I've always been super intentional with that. I've always had this kind of phrase of like, what's the difference with manipulation and parenting?
Yeah. Oh.
Oh,
That-
okay.
well,
All
yeah.
right. Maybe expand on that, because we're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
not pro manipulation.
Yeah.
Well, we're
Are
not
we?
we're not pro manipulation, and we go and see it negative in every
Yeah.
other aspect. But when it comes
sounds-
to kids, we're actually very intentionally manipulative, where we go and offer them treats or removal of
We're
punishments
training
or
things,
different things like that. So
Yeah.
in essence, we are kind of manipulating, but the difference, I would say, in these situations is probably looking at the outcome. Manipulation is where
Yeah.
you want something for your own ends and you
Yeah.
don't care about that other person, whereas with parenting, you are actually doing it for them.
For them.
For their
And even
good.
though-
So you're like,
Yeah,
I'm
of
helping
course.
you be a good person
That's
because
right.
it's good
That's
for
right.
you.
And you're
It's going to
teaching
give
them.
you a good life.
Yeah, that's right. You're teaching them all these things. So with Samuel, I was honest with him, and I just sat down with him one time, and I just said about quality statements. Where did I get? I can't even remember where I got the idea from, but I think it's just from normal interactions, right? Where you get kids who don't say thank you, right?
Oh yeah.
And you're like, thank you,
Yeah.
just to remind
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of like the minimum that we
Yeah.
expect them, right? So and then you've got kids who say thank you as thank you, but never look at you, or do you know what I mean? So there's just by words they'll say that, but then really what you want them to do is actually be grateful, right?
Yeah. Understand
So
it. Yeah.
at this point, this is where I go and sit down with Samuel, and I'd go and say, hey, what did you enjoy about this experience? Do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, or gift that you got from grandma, or different things like that. And he'll be like, oh, it's so cool, it's this or that, whatever. And I said, okay, cool. When you go and say thank you, you go and say thank you, and you tell them why you're thankful for it, okay?
Yeah.
And I said, the good thing about this, and this is where I'm teaching him manipulation, I'm like, good thing about this is that they're more likely to go and do good things for you when they go and see that you are grateful for the things and why you're grateful for them.
Yeah.
And it warms your heart, doesn't it? When someone goes and says, hey, thank you so much, like you are the best friend or whatever, or I had the best time with you.
Yeah.
Like they're the things that warm your heart and make a real difference. Whereas to go and just have a simple thank you is nice, of course, but I think there's something more we can do. So I trained, hopefully trained. He does it most of the time, but I do have to remind him every so often. Quality statement.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's good though because
love
so
that.
often I think we just kind of tick the box with like manners with our kids. Say please, say thank you.
Yeah.
But it's not actually like what you said, character development. It's not actually changing
Teaching
their
them
heart.
anything.
It's just like
Building up habits.
I'm just telling. And it's still good to have the habit of
course.
saying
Yep.
please and thank you. Like it's still good to do that
Yeah.
automatically, but for them to actually think, well, what am I really grateful
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
I've been trying to work on gratitude with one of my children who always is a little bit entitled
I
and
think
wants
it's
more
a
things.
work in progress all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I realized instead of being frustrated about the entitlement and being like, you're always asking for more, always doing, I was like, well, let's just work on gratitude, and so let's
that's
think
good.
of the things that we're thankful
Yep.
for, and let's make a list of everything good that's happened, so that next time you ask for more, we can actually just first stop and go, oh, remember these things we're
Yeah.
thankful for. So it's kind of like that heart, like character development, like what you were
Yeah.
saying.
I
I like that.
Very good.
So
I
cool.
like that a lot. Are there any other top tips
Top
in
tips.
that kind of lane about being
Being
intentional?
Oh, I probably have too many, but
Hit us
I
with
think-
another one.
what I've been probably intentional with Samuel lately about is what have I been? I should just think about all the negative parts of them and then take it from that way. What I've been really intentional is actually just talking to him about his behavior, like before and after TV or screen.
Oh,
And when he does have emotional outbursts about being like, I didn't get long enough, or I just want to do one more thing, or things like that, I go and say, hey, listen, your behavior is not acceptable. You shouldn't feel this way after you've watched TV or you've had a game or whatever. You should actually be feeling good about yourself and being positive. Otherwise, it's not an enjoyable experience. So I'll just challenge him on that. But then when he comes off and he's not negative, I'll go and say, hey, listen, buddy, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And do you remember we had that conversation? Like, this is how I would expect all of our interactions afterwards. So I'm just reinforcing at that point the fact that these behaviors afterwards aren't really him. It's actually just a byproduct of TV, but he can control those things. We've all got impulses. He's 8. I keep saying that. 8. And,
he's really claiming that 9. Isn't
yeah, that's right. It's almost a year until he's 9 as well. But yeah, he's so just being really intentional with just kind of pointing out those things and being open with them. And he understands he definitely understands those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I did with him as well is he's a little bit reluctant to do activities that he says that he doesn't want to do, but once he's in there, he actually enjoys them.
Sure.
But I just go and say, hey, listen, let's not be negative towards things that we're just about to do. Okay? Actually, let's do the opposite and let's be positive towards them. So we're looking forward to them. And one of those things is that you have to model that as a parent, right? So he was asking me if I wanted to go and play this game on his Switch.
Yeah.
And it was a game that I don't really enjoy, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I was just like, anything but that game. Okay, and I'd actually be generally anything but that game. But then I just caught myself. I just said this to him. I said, buddy, I'm sorry. I said we should be positive about trying different things and new experiences, or not even a new experience. I knew this experience, but I just like, let's be positive about it. I was just like, I'd love to go and play that game with you. And he's just like, oh no, we can play something else, which is incredibly nice and a good let up close. And I said, nope, I want to play that game, please. Because you've got to model these things with
it's
your
the most
children.
important part.
So I got caught by my own
Yeah.
condemnation. So I thought I'd better act through. So, but
awesome.
I think you can create those situations as well to go and teach them how to work through it and to identify those things as well. So he'll now know, actually, that's what my dad did. That's what I should be doing.
Yeah. When
so
someone suggests something that I might not necessarily want to do, I'm going to not be the
That's right.
complainer.
Yeah.
That's right. And just being intentional. And when you do stuff up, as I did then, is owning it and saying, hey, listen, no, actually, I do want to do that game. And things like that, so.
It's all about modeling it, isn't it? That's what I'm learning as a parent.
It's inconvenient.
There's so much that I just want to tell them. Just do this, do that, act like this, don't complain, But you really have to model it, and that's the challenge. What do you find hard about being a dad?
Tiredness. being a servant for 24/7. I think before parenting, you kind of get into your own habitat and you meet someone that you align with, and you can do whatever you want with and you enjoy. There's less frictions and different things like that. But then I think having children is obviously just, you kind of give out your life to them, in different situations. So now your night is not yours to sleep.
Nope.
It's now yours to go and get up and look after kids and different things like that. Or, chauffeuring them to school or activities or their friends. Play date. It is chauffeuring.
Yeah, it is.
And different things like that. So I think kind of not having that time or that abundance of time that, at the time I thought I was busy. But you realize you've got oodles and oodles of time. But you used it, I don't know, watching Netflix. I mean, I still do that now. But I had even more time back then for Netflix. So
back in the day.
I think that's a challenging part. And obviously you'd never want to think of parenting as a grind, but there's aspects in which I think you do feel it as a grind.
Like brushing a 2-year-old's teeth every day. You're like, this is not what I would choose to do with my time.
No.
Like having the fight about brushing the teeth or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like non-glamorous parts of being a parent, isn't there?
Yeah.
There definitely is.
Yeah.
Those poos just keep coming.
They just keep on coming.
That toilet training, they're so generous.
Yeah, but I like the fact that kids will just give you a lot of foretaste of like, I could do this and show you their poo in the toilet, but will they do that for the next 3 months? No, they will not. They'll be back in nappies or whatever, or pooing pants or doing all those different things.
It's delightful.
What a delight.
Raise
So
your hopes
lovely.
and dash them.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, you mentioned at the very start of this episode that you're a stay-at-home dad.
Yes.
Did you see that in your future? Was that like a bit of a thing to wrap your head around? Okay, I'm doing this.
I did not entirely know, but I wasn't against it because I actually love kids. So
it's great.
That helped.
Really
That's
good.
helpful.
Really good.
And I think
I hope you at least love
yours
kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when we were trying to get pregnant, I think in our heads between Ellie and I, she couldn't really see herself being a stay-at-home mum.
Sure.
She could now, and like ever since we had a child, she could. But I think she just couldn't quite see that. So I think at that point, I was okay with it anyways, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm happy with doing that." And we wanted to spend more time with our kids rather than just both of us working and things like that. And then now she's got much more earning potential than I would. So, whether I spend 3 days and she only works 1 day, it just makes more financial sense now. And, she only works 3 days intentionally so that she can spend more time with the kids, particularly at this period of time where they are fun and interactive and things like that. Maybe when they become less fun, she'll be like, I'm working full time and overtime.
Peace out.
Really need you.
We'll find out at that point, but it hasn't happened yet.
I can't imagine. She
No,
loves
no,
those
she's-
boys so much.
that's
You guys are a great team. Do you find it a challenge to navigate like parenting together, like as a team, or do you have any advice for parents on how to do that well?
Yeah, I think we definitely are grateful for the fact that we see eye to eye with most things. Ellie and I probably like sit down and kind of talk about the kids, and we don't do it as organizationally as saying a debrief, but in essence, it is kind of a debrief of what the kids have been up to, what we've done, and probably a lot with our firstborn Samuel. We had like 5 years of just having him, so we talked about him all the time and loved it, so kind of got us on the same page and trying to do the same strategies together and different things like that. So some of that's a bit of compromise or whatever, where we don't see eye to eye, but not far enough that I've like tried to do anything kind of divisively different. We just try and stick to doing the same things. It's great that she is a good parent anyway, so I'm not having to be like, oh, hello.
I think you should change.
If anything, it goes the other way, and that's fine. We both have different strengths and things like that. So she likes my intentional parenting and adapting that. But as a doctor, she's much better in a lot of, my kids falling over and bleeding and things like that. And what should we do about that? I'm like, he'll be fine. Rub extra dirt in there. She's like, no, clean that up with cotton wool and warm water. I'm like, well, it's a lot of effort. So
I have to admit, I have lied to Ellie before about like how well I've cleaned wounds and stuff.
Oh, really?
She'd be like, did you put some like antiseptic on it? Oh, yeah,
For
sure. Just wiped it off with a baby wipe. They're antiseptic, aren't they?
just so you know, she knows that you've lied. Don't you worry. Okay, that is her job and her profession. She knows.
She knows.
She knows.
She knows.
Oh, anyway, she's great. Cool, awesome. Well, we like to wrap up by just asking our guests one parenting hack that they've got. So something that you have discovered in your family life that makes being a parent easier, whether it's like a routine or a product that you use or a mindset you tell yourself. What's something that helps you?
Yeah, mindset I tell myself, just making things fun. So I was very tired last night, and I was lying on the carpet thinking, I wish these boys would just go to bed. But they were having lots of fun, and you can either like just let it go or you can be part of it. And I just choose when you can and you realize it, just be a part of it. So I was just like, do you want a dance party? And they were like, dance party. And so I took my phone through to the bedroom. They jump up and down on my mattress or whatever the whole time. And we just go and put on whatever music. They take turns choosing the songs. I've listened to the YMCA far too many times. But they, so just trying to make activities fun whenever they can. Brushing the teeth. I try to make that fun as much as possible. Or any activity that seems like a negative one or whatever. I just try to find a way to go and make that fun. Usually through some game or different things like that. And it's better to go and enjoy your parenting experience than enduring. So I think if you can go and put it on your time and your grounds of what you like to do, then you can choose to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'll take that. Winner. Well, I've definitely learned so much. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm really excited to listen back to it. But thank you so much for sharing your story, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
It's been amazing, but I feel like we're going to have you back one day because this is really fun. So, anywho.
Well, big promises.
Anywho.
All right, thanks so much.
See ya.
Bye.
Well, that's all for this episode of the Strong Families podcast.
We are so glad you joined us for this chat. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find us on Instagram at strongfamilies.au or on Facebook. We would love to hear from you. Now, go enjoy your week, enjoy your family, and we'll join us again next week.
Cool. See you next time, guys.